Right now, somewhere in your brain, you are measuring yourself against someone else. Maybe it is a colleague who just got promoted. Maybe it is someone on Instagram living the life you told yourself you are building. Maybe it is an old friend who seems to have figured something out that you haven't. You have done this today, probably more than once. And here's what the research says about that. 10% of every waking thought you have involves comparing yourself to someone. 1 in every 10 thoughts since you woke up this morning. And you are born this way. The problem is, the world you are born into was not built for this. Social comparison is not a character flaw. It is a survival mechanism, and it is over 4 million years old. In 1954, psychologist Leon Festinger published one of the most cited papers in the history of psychology. His finding was this: when humans lack objective measurements for their own worth, they use other people as the ruler. Not because they are insecure, because that is what human cognition does. It calibrates. Here's why. For hundreds of thousands of years, humans lived in tribes of 50 to 150 people. And within those groups, knowing your relative standing, your strength, your status, your position was generally a matter of survival. We know this is ancient because a 2017 study published in PNAS found social comparison in baboons. The same upward and downward comparison patterns. The same performance response in primates. This predates language, it predates culture. It is written into the architecture of the primate brain. And here's where it breaks. That ancient comparison mechanism was calibrated for a reference group of 150 people. People you knew personally. People who shared your actual circumstances. Today, Instagram alone has 2.3 billion monthly active users. You are running a piece of ancient software designed for 150 people on a platform built for 2.3 billion. The research identifies 3 forms of comparison, and only one of them is actually useful. Upward comparison, measuring yourself against someone better off. Downward comparison, measuring yourself against someone worse off. And temporal comparison, measuring yourself against your own past or future self. Social media has almost completely eliminated the third one, because social media does not show you who you were last year. It shows you who everyone else is right now, at their best, with filters. Every time you compare yourself on social media, you are comparing your unfiltered inside to someone else's polished outside. The comparison is structurally rigid. Before you even open the app, internal research from Meta's own research, found that Instagram made body image issues worse for 1 in 3 teen girls already experiencing body image concerns. That was not external study, that was a finding from inside the company. A 2023 meta-analysis found that upward comparison on social media consistently produces 3 specific outcomes: worse body image, lower self-esteem, worse mental health, across all platforms consistently, predictably. But here is the distinction the research makes that almost nobody is talking about. Not all comparison produces the same outcome. When you see someone who is better than you and you think, if they can do it, so can I, the research calls that benign envy. It produces motivation, improvement, action. When you see someone who is better than you and the gap feels unbridgeable, when instead of inspiration you feel resentment, that is malicious envy. And it produces something else entirely. The 2023 meta-analysis found that contrast, not assimilation, is the dominant response to comparison on social media. Most of the time, social media does not make you want to improve. It makes you feel like the gap is the problem, and you are the gap. You already know what chronic comparison costs you. You have felt it. This Sunday evening when you opened Instagram and felt genuinely good about your week until you didn't. The achievement you were proud of until you found out someone your age had achieved something bigger. The relationship you were content in until someone else's highlight reel made yours feel like a rough draft. A 2023 study from Frontiers in Psychology found out income does not directly affect well-being. It operates almost entirely through comparisons. How your income compares to your childhood peers was a stronger predictor of your happiness than your absolute income level. Bertrand Russell said it in 1930 and nobody has improved on it since. Beggars do not envy millionaires, just other beggars who are more successful. And for people in depressive episodes, the research shows they compare more frequently and benefit from it less. Comparison worsens the depression. The depression drives more comparison. That is not a willpower problem. That is a neurological loop that no one taught you to recognize. I know the exact feeling of sitting with a piece of work I was proud of and watching it shrink the moment I saw that someone else had produced. Not because my work changed, because my measurement changed. Here's what the research is consistent on. There is one form of comparison that is associated with lower envy, higher intrinsic motivation, and better mental health outcomes. Comparing yourself to who you were, not who they are. The research calls this temporal comparison, and it is one comparison mode that social media almost completely removed from your daily cognitive diet. Because social media has no archive of your growth, it only has a feed of other people's highlights. A longitudinal study found something important. People with greater metacognitive insight, people who understood their own cognitive patterns, still sought comparison information. But they sought it for self-improvement, not self-evaluation. The difference between those two things is the difference between using a mirror and being trapped inside one. Self-awareness transforms comparison from a threat into a tool. The research identifies two ways comparison can drive you. Dominance, competing through intimidation, winning by making others smaller. Driven by contrast, driven by contempt. Prestige, competing through demonstrated quality, winning by actually becoming better. Driven by assimilation, driven by aspiration. And the research shows these two paths lead to completely two different places. One produces resentment, the other produces growth. So the question is not, how do I stop comparing? Festinger proved in 1954 that you cannot stop comparing. The baboons cannot stop comparing. It is a biological imperative. The question is, who are you comparing yourself to and why? If the answer is someone on a platform whose entire existence you experience through a filtered, curated, optimized presentation of their best moments, you are not comparing yourself to a person. You are comparing yourself to a product. And you will lose every time. Not because you are not enough, because the comparison was never real. The research points to one specific shift that changes the outcome. Ask yourself, am I better than I was 6 months ago? 1 year ago? Not better than them, better than you were. The brain that runs your comparison mechanism was calibrated for 150 people. You cannot upgrade it, but you can choose a reference group. When was the last time you measured yourself against who you were instead of who they are? That is the only measurement that was ever yours.